Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Jonny G in the Morning. If you guys saw my last video, it had to do with the Holmen School Board meeting. If you guys remember, the young girl, Emily, who actually got cut off by the president there. I believe it was Miss Hancock, if I remember correctly, was her name. I actually have the guy that I used the video. His name is Tony, the one that I told you guys to check out his channel, subscribe to it. Just so happens it's also Emily's father. And the biggest question I had for you right away, Tony, is I know we've discussed it before. You told me you've gone to school board meetings before. I believe, if I remember correctly, too, that you said you've been a part of them, like on the panel. And when Emily said, I am the proud daughter of what they say, the self righteous man, and she stared right at Ms. Hancock. When we talked, you told me you actually had to get carried out of there, not carried, but walked out by a police officer. Can you explain kind of what happened at that meeting?
Sure. So just a little background, Johnny. I used to sit on the Holmen Village Board. So I sat on there for 2 terms. I was an elected official there. So I kind of know the rules about Rules of Order and, all that kind of stuff. So just a little background on why the police officer was there. So a lot of people that have seen the local news here, they, on the radio and in the paper and on Facebook that there were people that were escorted out because they weren't wearing their masks. Well, the reason that the police officer was there in the first place is because somebody had posted a meme on their Facebook, and it was a quote from Thomas Paine actually, and in that meme it was like a patriot that was like holding a gun, kind of like downwards and carrying a flag, and this Thomas Paine quote, and he had posted it on his personal Facebook page. Well, somebody screenshot that and then sent it to one of the school board members and said, "Hey, this person's going to show up at the school board meeting. You better be careful." So this person then felt all threatened that somebody was going to be there, be threatening or something like that. So they called up the local police and said, "Hey, we've had threats," which is absolutely false. It was absolutely taken out of context, and that's why the officer was there in the first place. So that's why Officer Kind was there. Actually, I've known Officer Kind for about 20 years. I'm a patriot and I love local law enforcement, and I'm there to support them and help them any way that I can. So I've known Officer Kind for a long time, and as we were kind of congregating before the meeting actually started, Officer Kind walked up, and I knew that he was going to be there because I heard about all this kind of stuff, and the person that had put that meme out is a personal friend of mine. So it was, like I said, totally taken out of context, but whatever, he was there. So I started talking to Terry, and I'm like, "Hey man, how was your weekend? How you doing, this and that?" And I'm like, "Hey, you better be prepared to put your mask on when you enter the building." And he looked at me like, "What? What are you talking about?" And I said, "Well, just on Friday they sent out an email saying that anybody that wants to come in to the school board meeting, they're going to have to wear a mask." Terry looked at me like, "Well, that's odd. That's kind of strange." So when Terry went in, he had no idea what he was getting himself into. He just thought that there was just going to be a presence there to just make sure that there weren't going to be any threats or anything like that. So when you fast forward into the public comment part, that's where I got up and I said my piece, and I usually keep it scripted because if I stay on script, I can get everything said that I want to say, and then it's when I go off script that things kind of get a little haywire. So as I finished up my talk, I just basically went after the board and said, "Hey, you know what? 2 weeks ago we were all sitting here and nobody had masks on, and now you're all sitting up here with your masks on, virtue signaling that, oh, we got to have our masks and all this kind of stuff." And there were comments made 2 weeks ago that these school board members were afraid for their lives because people weren't masking and all that kind of stuff, and none of them were wearing masks. So at the end of the school board a couple of weeks ago, where that selfish, self-righteous comment came from was actually the man that sits next to my daughter, Emily, who said that you really don't have freedom when it comes to wearing a mask, and if you don't wear a mask, you're selfish and self-righteous, and basically feeding into your own self-righteousness, I guess. So that's where the comment came in when Emily said that that man that was escorted out was actually my father, and I'm still proud of him. So when at the end of my talk, I said, I encourage every person in here to take your masks off because number one, it's not a law. Number two, there's no mandate through the state or anything else to say that you have to have this mask on. And on top of that, there was not enough public notice to give telling people that if you were going to enter this open meeting, that you were going to have to wear a mask. So that's what I said. I walked to the back of the room and I sat down, and then Ms. Hancock said, Tony, can you please put your mask on? Mr. Newman, can you put your mask on? Because there were a few of us not wearing masks. And I basically said, hey, I'm not putting your mask on, Cheryl, because I have every right to be here as a participant in this public meeting, and you have absolutely no right to kick me out. And that's when she called on Officer Kind to remove me from the meeting. Now, Officer Kind, again, had no idea that he was going to be at this meeting in the first place. And on top of that, there's no legal background. There's no way that anybody could be physically removed from this just from that school board president saying, hey, we're going to now use the police officers to do whatever the hell we want. So I was pretty pissed off. Obviously, I know Officer Kind, so if you watch the video, you can see I kind of pat him on the chest, and I'm like, hey, man, I'm leaving. I'm good. We're good. It's not like he was going to throw me in handcuffs and he put me in a headlock and, threw me out of the building. I went under my own will, 100%. And after I left, then there were 3 other people that stood up, tore their masks off, and said, all right, escort us out too, because we're done. We're done with this crap. So he escorted a few other people out. So that's where the headline came in that, oh, well, people were escorted out of the building because they weren't wearing masks, which was completely a BS move because, again, that police officer was put in a very awkward spot, a very awkward position, and he really didn't have the authority to do it. But because I respect him and I respect our local law enforcement, I happily left, or, well, not happily, but I did leave the meeting.
Right. I did notice, though, too, in the video, I mean, Emily wasn't wearing a mask. Was that an issue? I didn't watch the whole meeting. I did just watch that 4-minute clip. Did they say anything to her about not wearing a mask?
No, this is the thing. This is absolutely crazy. So all the parents that walked in, they had to wear a mask, but any student that was in the meeting didn't have to wear a mask. So can you please try and wrap your head around how crazy these types of things are? I mean, all of us parents are wondering, like, who's making up these rules? What kind of data do you have to justify implementing these rules? And what are the matrix going to be to tell us that our kids have to wear a mask or they don't have to wear a mask? It's completely bizarre to everyone there. So no, none of the high school kids were masked in that entire room. There was Emily, and then there were probably 5 other kids in there that didn't have to wear the mask, but the parents did.
So, if I can wrap my brain around this,
So Johnny, this is where I'm at too. Like, what the hell is going on?
well,
What's going
where are
on?
they getting these? Where are they getting the data? Do they actually show the parents? Do they actually show the students? Do they have a website that you have to go to actually understand what these mask mandates are going to be, or what? Like, is there a CDC website that they go by, or are they going by data that's just by county, by state? Like, what are they actually showing parents and students as for their reasoning of why these masks have to be put on?
So what they're telling us is that the health department from La Crosse County, and they're also using the recommendations from the CDC and all that other stuff. But what matrix do you use? Is it the people that are in hospital beds, or is it actually the people that are sick from COVID, or is it the people that are actually dying from COVID? Because we look around and we take a look at the deaths from COVID, and I don't want to get into, like, all the stats and all that kind of stuff. But when you really take a look at it, since this pandemic started, about 368 children under the age of 18 out of what, 75 million children in the United States have died of COVID. Now, I would say that probably some of those probably were more complications, probably pre-existing type conditions and things like that. But for the most part, anywhere from children all the way up to people in their 40s, it's such a small percentage of people that are actually dying from this. And now we're on the other side of it, and they still want to hammer down these regulations that, frankly, I'm done with. I'm not wearing this mask anymore. I've had it. And now I don't want to sit here and say that you don't have to wear the mask. All I'm saying is let's make masks optional for our children. And that was the whole point of every person that got up there and had something to say to the school board. They were saying, let's make masks optional. That doesn't mean that you can't send your kid to school with a mask on. If you feel that your child is going to be protected by the mask, then you can send them to school with the mask on. But we're saying at least give us as parents and the kids in the school the option of exercising our rights as Americans to choose what we want to do.
That's what I've always found interesting about this entire thing is they want to sit there and say, oh, you get the vaccine, you're good to go. You don't have to wear the mask. And now they are finding out that you're still getting COVID or you're getting that Delta variant or whatever. And even though you still get the vaccine, you still have to wear the mask. So to me, I'm not sure if you saw the video when I had on there. It's not technically considered a vaccine. It's actually a gene therapy. Have you ever heard of that study at all when they had a bunch of scientists come out and say that?
Studies, yep.
Yeah, so it's technically a gene therapy, and I agree with you on that 100%. I really do believe that it should be up to the parents. It should be up to the kids as well. I mean, the kids, if you're in high school, you're obviously kind of old enough to decide what you want to do with your life a little bit. If you want to go to school and you feel like a mask is going to keep you protected, then by all means wear a mask. But you shouldn't be putting other people down because they want to exercise their right into not wearing a mask. And that's one thing I've never really understood. I feel like schools are kind of doing a weird thing now. I don't know if they send out letters to the parents before school starts, like giving them guidelines of, yes, these masks are going to be mandatory. And then they also send the data, or is it just kind of like free reign? Do you not know until like the last minute?
Yeah, well, this is actually last minute. So when we went to the school board meeting last Monday, they were requiring masks from kids kindergarten through sixth grade, and then kids seventh grade through 12th grade masks were optional. So the parents that were showing up were saying, "Hey, this isn't affecting children like you say it's affecting children. Kids aren't dying from this. Kids aren't getting super sick from this. So why are we having masks mandated for the younger children?" So since that school board meeting, yesterday around 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, all the parents from the Holmen School District got an email from the district saying that masks now are going to be mandatory for all grades. And my kids start school tomorrow. So here we are, last minute bullshit, and they're going to cram this down from going masks optional from 7 through 12, 7 through 12. Now they're required. Guess what? You start school in 2 days.
See, that's crazy to me because a lot, like when you said earlier, a lot of people that are being affected by this, a lot of them had like the health condition to begin with. And I'm not sure if you've heard of what's happening in New York where they actually do have a vaccine card now. You can't go to a gym. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't go anywhere without that vaccine card. So to stop people from going to the gym, if you actually exercise, you actually keep yourself healthy, which, like your daughter, is an athlete. Like, obviously, she's probably working out. Obviously, she's keeping herself healthy. It has proven that if you are in good health, it doesn't affect you the same. So I don't understand why these schools or why people are trying to say like, oh, you have to wear this mask because it's for your own safety. No, get healthy. I believe that's for your own safety, and I don't see why they're trying to fight that.
Yeah, and here's the other thing, Johnny, is what about the kids that already had COVID? What about the adults that already had COVID? What about the people that have the natural immunities built up already? And now you're going to want to force me to take a vaccine, or you're going to force people to take a vaccine, or even kids to take a vaccine when there's probably a lot of kids that have already had it. I mean, remember, one of the symptoms of COVID is you might not have any symptoms. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how ridiculous this is getting. So I just want to say that I'm not an anti-vax guy. I think vaccinations for certain people, hey, that's great. But this is what my point was when I addressed the school board, was that as a citizen, as an American citizen, I should be able to take and figure out what the risks are for me and make a risk assessment based on who I am in life. You know, I'm a 43-year-old person. I'm 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 pretty fit. I try and eat healthy as much as I can. I'm not overweight or obese or anything like that. I don't have any pre-existing conditions like diabetes or heart issues or anything like that. So I look at that and I say, you know what? I'm pretty sure I had COVID. I lost my sense of smell and taste for a little while, and I was sick and had some respiratory stuff. So I believe that I didn't go get tested or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure that I had it. I had the real symptoms for it. And I say to myself, I don't think that I really need to go and get this vaccine because I'd rather just get it naturally, create that herd immunity that we're looking for. So, however, now if you're in your 70s and you feel like, hey, you know what, I really can't afford to get COVID. I think that this vaccine is the right thing for me. By all means, go ahead. Or even if you're in your 20s or 30s, whatever that is, if you decide that you want to go and get that vaccination, go for it. I'm not going to look at you any differently. Frankly, that's your prerogative and that's your choice as an American citizen. I think that this whole thing is starting to wake people up. They're starting to understand that, first off, our local governments have way more power than we ever thought they had. And obviously, we look at things on the national scale and we say, well, there's really nothing I can do. I mean, I can go and vote for my congressman or my senator or the president or whatever, and you feel kind of helpless. But when we're talking about our local school boards and our village boards and things like that, county boards, I mean, the county board right now for La Crosse, they have the county health department that's working with them, and they are basically dictating to everybody what these rules are going to be. So I guess my biggest thing is just get involved. You don't necessarily have to go to the school board and have a big long speech written out. But if there's a concern that you have, say that you're against the mask, at least show up, state your name, and say, I think that mask should be optional for my kids. Thank you, and go sit down. I mean, that's all you have to do. You don't have to make a big spotlight on YouTube or anything like that, but just simply showing up and doing something. And then the other big thing is I had a Facebook message from somebody today, and they said, well, it's obvious that all these people that were voted in for your school board, they're representing the majority of the people. And I had to remind that person that actually in our last April election, less than 20% of Holmen showed up to vote for that school board. Less than 20%. We have to get people off their ass and get in there and vote. And we've got a bunch of people that are pissing and moaning now that we're having these types of mandates shoved down our throats. And if you want to complain about it, you have every right to piss and moan about it. But if you didn't get out and vote, or if you didn't have somebody that you're representing get on that school board because you decided not to show up and vote, or you decided not to give them any support, that's on you. So we have to get involved in these, just in our local community, just making sure that we are supporting those candidates, and we're getting out and we're making our voices heard, and we're getting the people in there for a voice. Now, it doesn't matter if you're on the left or right or conservative or liberal, whatever title you have. We all need to understand that no matter what side of the aisle you're on, we have liberties and freedom that is innate in the Constitution of the United States. When you're born, you are born with certain rights and freedoms. And I'll be damned if I'm going to have go away while I'm sitting here.
Yeah, I'm glad you worded it like that, because it's always been a thing with me too. Is I feel like it's almost like people are afraid to speak up and they don't want to say what's on their mind because they're afraid of the backlash they're going to get, whether it's from the school board, whether it's from the school, or even their neighbor. I've never understood that people need to realize you're getting your rights taken away from you. And you're letting it happen. And the only reason you're letting it happen is because you're so scared and afraid to actually speak your mind. And I feel like that's just kind of part of just how human beings are now. And I've never understood that. And also, I had COVID. So in the way I found out, and they say I had COVID. I don't really think I did. So I actually ended up, I had a hard day of sleeping, like my back just really hurt, and I was just like, all right, I'm getting sick. But it was usually around the time I get sick. I believe it was in November. And I always get sick around that time of year. I go into work and check my temperature. Temperature's fine. I'm like, all right, let's do the smell test. So I went and grabbed a brand new marker. Smelt it, couldn't smell it. tossed it off to the side, grabbed another one out of the box, couldn't smell it. And I was like, ah, shit. So I had to contact my boss and say, well, I can't smell. I might have COVID. I don't know. So she made me go get tested. You're supposed to get your results, and I think it was like 48 or 72 hours. I couldn't remember. A week later, I was already sitting at home. They finally contacted me and said, yep, you have COVID. What are your symptoms? And I was like, well, I don't have any symptoms now. Like, it was my normal sickness that I have where I felt plugged up. I was achy, and that was the end of it. They still made me sit out for 14 days. And it came to the point where I was like, I was wondering if they were just trying to make me a stat. I wonder if I was on that borderline where they're like, hey, this guy kind of has the symptoms. Let's just say he's got COVID. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. I couldn't go out grocery shopping. I couldn't do anything. I had to go have my parents and some friends every so often drop me off some shit. And it felt like they had to come, set it on my porch, get in their vehicle, the best I could do, wave to them, grab the shit, and bring it in my house. To be treating someone like that, when I don't even think I had it. I never actually tested myself when I usually get sick that time of year to see if I smelt anything until COVID came around. So I don't know if they're trying to inflate the stats, and it blows my mind how we just go to everything kind of getting back to normal to it's like, let's flip the switch. Now we have a Delta variant. I don't understand why that's happening.
Yeah, and I think the government from the top down has really done a poor job educating people on getting the vaccine. First off, you had I don't want to get too political here, but you had Kamala Harris saying, "Hey, I'm not going to get this vaccine if it comes under Trump's administration," right? So you got her saying something like that. Then Joe Biden gets in, and then they start rolling out the vaccine, which was already rolling out anyway. And then everybody says, well, you got to get the vaccine. Let's get the vaccine. Everybody get the vaccine. Once you get the vaccine, you can take your mask off. You can go about your business. Everybody's good. Mm-hmm. Then everybody starts getting vaccinated. Oh, wait a minute. We've got another thing coming out here. Oh, now the people that have been vaccinated, now you got to wear masks again. So then you have people that might be sitting on the fence saying, well, what the hell do I need to get this vaccination for? I mean, if I'm still going to have to do all the stuff that they were telling me to do in the first place, there's no reason that I get this vaccination. Until they get their stuff together, then it doesn't get FDA approved. Then they finally get FDA approval, but it's under a different name and all sorts of other stuff. So it's been really difficult to get good information. You can take a look at the death numbers. You can take a look at how many people are in hospital beds right now. Remember when this all first started, it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Mm-hmm. And here we are, a year and a half later, after we devastated our economy. We put millions of people stuck in their homes. We've seen spikes in suicide, mental illness, drug addiction, all sorts of things that have been absolutely just terrible for this country and our economy. It's been very hard to deal with for a lot of people. I'm lucky that I work at a place where I was still able to go into the office and still able to work. But working out of our houses and things like that, everybody's changing, and you're not seeing the facial expressions on people, and you're canceling meetings, and you can't get together for maybe if you're good, everybody can go and have a barbecue on the 4th of July. I mean, this is stuff where, as Americans, we have to finally just say, enough is enough. Enough is enough. Yep. And I'm going to take my risk assessments, and I'm going to go and do those things that I've always wanted to do. I want to go out to a nice restaurant, or I want to go on vacation with my family. I should be able to have that right to do so.
Right. And the video, I watched the video either yesterday or today. The thing about the hospital bed situation is that there was a nurse that actually made a video. I'm not sure if you can find it now. She said how they actually dictate whether or not when they say we don't have enough beds for you, it actually is how many nurses they have on staff. So there could be close to probably 40 beds in a hospital that are actually empty. But when they tell you we don't have any beds available for you, we're full, they're not full. It's actually they don't have the staff because now nurses are starting to get fired if they're not going to get the vaccine. They were last year's heroes, and now they're this year's unemployed, which I think is despicable. I can't even I couldn't imagine being in their shoes right now of how they must feel like that.
Yeah, my wife actually is a nurse, and they're mandating the vaccination at her work, and there's been a lot of discussions here at our house that that's a bad place to be.
Right.
If she doesn't get it, if she gets the medical exemption that she would want, there's she might be able to do that, but then when she goes back to work, what if they just say, well, we're just going to work you out of the system anyway? So there's always that fear in the back of your head, like, well, I could legally maybe get a medical exemption, be it religious reasons or be it a medical or whatever that is. And if you go back to work and you have to wear a mask, everybody knows that you haven't been vaccinated, and so it's been really difficult for us to kind of navigate through this because we're a two-income household here, and we've been living like this for a long time, and what do you do? I mean, and that's not just for nurses. That's going to be the whole corporate structure of America. And if you're going to want to go to, you talked about it in New York, you got to have a green card to enter a restaurant or a hotel or whatever that is. I mean, where's this going to end? And when are people just going to stand up and say enough is enough?
Right. I promise I'm not checking my phone. I just want your input on this. I screenshotted this because I'm sure it's probably taken down now. They actually had a scale of how many years it took to create a vaccine. So I'll just kind of go through a couple of them here. You got the yellow fever that actually looks like it was discovered in the 1900s. It took them 35 years to come out for a vaccine. Polio, it took them 45 years to have a vaccine to come out. Measles, it took them 46 years to come out with a vaccine. Influenza, it took them 12 years. You're looking at hepatitis B, 17 years. And then you look down at COVID-19, it took them 6 months to come up with a vaccine. I've seen a lot of speeches, and I saw a speech by a doctor that said he used to work on vaccines, and it takes close to 10 years to even come out with a vaccine, and they came out with this in 6 months. He said it's not even possible. That's not even a beta test to even test on animals yet. But yet people are just running out and like, oh, they have the cure. They don't have the cure. No. They're stabbing you with something that no one knows what the hell it's going to do to you. They are treating us like lab rats. And I don't know why. I don't know how people aren't seeing that. And then they had someone come up like, well, all the technical advances that we've made in medicine. It still doesn't, follow the whole 10-year plan of what it is for a vaccine.
Yeah, I'm kind of beside myself on that as well, Johnny. I mean, I take a look at that and just the research that I've done on my own. Again, I'm trying to be as open-minded as I possibly can with this, and it just doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense to me. So we could go down those rabbit holes all day long about the conspiracy theories and Bill Gates had this patent years ago and blah blah blah. I'm trying to keep it so I'm trying, just navigating my way through this with as much good information as I can get, looking at both sides of the argument. But again, I haven't been, I haven't had a flu shot since I probably was a little kid.
Me
I'm just not a big vaccine person. So that's kind of where I sit. But again, I think it really comes down to personal freedom and personal choice. And to have this mandated for anybody that wants to do anything, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a big problem. And the more control that we give the government, the more our freedoms are going to be stripped away.
Right. My favorite conspiracy with it is that they're injecting a tracking device on you, which is funny because they have one on you anyways. Your phone, right? Your phone is a tracking device. What kind of music do you listen to? Have you ever heard of a guy called Tom McDonald?
I have heard of Tom McDonald.
Oh, dude, his music, I think he hits everything so perfect on what the fuck is going on. And they're even trying to censor him now, which is it's going to be difficult for him because he's an independent artist. He doesn't have a label owner, so they can't really be like, no, Tom, you can't be talking about this. So to me, I've always had this thing of I really think that the government is trying to, you know, take control of what we can and cannot do. And I don't think people understand that there are millions of us, and I don't even know how many people are in Congress. I don't pay attention to that shit, but I know we outweigh them. And in our Constitution, it even states that if the government pretty much becomes a bunch of fucking assholes, we have the right to stand up to them and overthrow them.
That's right. That's right. Now, I don't want to be the overthrow the government guy because I'm very pro government.
Right.
And what I mean by that is I'm pro Constitution. I'm pro Bill of Rights. If you take a look at what our founding documents state, we the people do have the power. We do have that power to do it. But then again, we go back to, well, what the hell can I do to make any kind of change? And again, I go back to what I said earlier. Just at the local level, getting involved is a big deal because you might not be able to control what's going on in another state or something like that, but you can have a voice in what your county does, what your city does, what your town or village does, because you can be part of that. So that can then grow out. If you start becoming politically active in your local community, people are going to identify that, and maybe you can make a move to do something else if you aspire to do that. But that's where we got to be, John. We got to be right here at home, right in our backyards. We need to be talking to our neighbors. We need to be talking to our friends, not shoving our opinions down the throat of everybody else, but having an open mind to have a discussion. Tomorrow I'm going to be sitting down with somebody who is on one of the Facebook feeds on kind of the opposite side of my view, and this lady basically called me out and said, well, why don't we get together and talk about these different points of views? And I said, giddy up, let's do it. So we're going to be having coffee tomorrow afternoon, and we're going to sit down. I don't know where that conversation is going to go, but I'm going to be able to tell her kind of what my background is and where I see things going. She could tell me about her background and what she's doing. Then we can kind of get to a point where maybe we can agree, or at least put myself in her shoes. Maybe she can put herself in my shoes to at least see how I'm going about this, because I'm not a mean person. I'm not a mean-spirited person. I might raise my voice a little bit in a school board meeting. That doesn't mean that I hate you or want to do bad things to you. It just means that I'm getting a little amped up, and I have some raw emotion because we're talking about my kids here. And so I think the big thing is just having open discussions and trying to get to some sort of middle ground. But what I tell a lot of people is, we're probably closer together than we are.
Right.
Most of us don't lean super far left. Most people don't lean super far right. Usually it's right in the middle, and it's right in the middle where all the decisions are being made. So that's what we have to keep in mind, that, what are you out for? I'm out for protecting my family, and I'm out for, making a good living and being able to take vacations and help out my friends and, give to some charities and things like that. I want to be able to do that kind of stuff. And I just want the government to kind of leave me alone.
Right. I think that's kind of what we lost touch in, is you can have a disagreement with somebody. You can still be friends at the end of the day. You don't have to hate each other because someone has a different of opinion than you. I've talked to a lot of people that they have a difference of opinion than I do, and we can actually still have an adult conversation. We don't really raise our voices, but yeah, like you said, when you're making a point, you get a little amped up, and it's not that you're coming at them hard. It's just, hey, this is what I believe in, and you kind of get amped up, and then you have to be able to kind of come back down to their level and let them kind of raise their voice a little bit. We lost touch with that, I think, a long time ago, especially, and I don't want to get political either, but you look back at the last, election with Biden and Trump and everything. They kind of acted like a bunch of 12-year-old kids during their debate back and forth. And it's like, we don't have to be like that. And when you're on a big national stage like that, them as leaders should have toned it down, be adults, and not act the way that you acted, because now that's what people see, and that's what everyone thinks a discussion has to be.
That's absolutely right. And I was actually challenged. I was challenged by my neighbor. We don't particularly have the same views politically, or really any kind of views that have anything to do with anything. But she challenged me this. She said, "Do you hold the same views or do you hold the same opinions that you had 25 years ago?" And I kind of thought about it. I'm like, no, not all of them. No. And here's why, because we all go through different experiences in life, right? I mean, we go through a lot of crap. And when you go through those things, that's how we establish our opinions in the first place. So I might not have the same political opinions that I had 25 years ago because in the meantime, I started a business, I got married, I had some kids, I got involved in the community, whatever that was. My opinions are different now. So that doesn't mean that you can't change your opinion. And I think that that's something that when we sit down and we discuss with our friends and neighbors and try and come to some sort of middle ground, always remember that, our opinions can change. And the person that has the opinions that might be different than yours are probably based in something that they went through in their life. People will ask me a lot about, when I ran my construction company for 13 years, they'll come to me for advice because I did it, I was there, I was in it. And, what they're looking for in that mentorship or any kind of advice is kind of based on my own opinion on how I got through it and where I am today.
Yeah, experience is always the best thing that you can have is an experience in a situation. You're going to sit down with that lady tomorrow, which I think is going to be awesome. I actually had a couple people say, hey, if you're going to be talking to Tony, you should talk to Miss Hancock because at the end of it, I was a little bit heated and I was like, people can talk stats all they want, and I was like, statistically, I'm pretty sure everyone in that meeting and probably Emily's parents think that Miss Hancock's a bitch. Now, I never personally said she's a bitch, but at the same time, I don't agree with her. And like I said, she could be a really nice lady. I would love to sit down and talk with Miss Hancock. Not that I hate her. I don't know her. I've never met her. Don't know anything about her. But I kind of want to see where she's coming from, and especially when your daughter called her out. I see you out in the community. You don't have a mask on. Why do you think she's trying to put this show on in front of the school board?
Right. And let me just tell you a little bit about Cheryl. I've known Cheryl for probably close to 15 years now. Cheryl has been involved in a lot of other nonprofit organizations, and Cheryl has done some great things for the community. The way that Cheryl went after Emily was completely out of line, and not only was it kind of uncharacteristic of her to do that. I've never seen that kind of display really in any board situation that I've been in. I've been involved, like I said, the Village of Holmen Board. I sat on Wisconsin Builders Association board for many years. Our local Builders Association. I was involved. I've been involved in so many boards. It just makes me want to just try and get some of that time back. But at the end of every meeting, just about, there's always that time. There's that time where you can go around the room and all the board members can say a little piece. Sometimes they say nothing, or sometimes they say, "Oh, thank you so much for so and so for donating to this cause or whatever," and then they move on. Emily had her piece to say, and when she's done, it goes to the next person, then it goes to the next person, the next person. The thing with Robert's Rules of Orders is that that's not a discussion time for the board. They're actually in a quorum right now. They had all 7 board members there, plus Emily, who doesn't have a vote on that board. And when Cheryl opened up that discussion or asked her a pointed question and then gave her basically an entrapment question, if you watch the video, she gave her 2 options and both crap. So she had already entrapped Emily in a terrible question and gave her no options and then shut her down before she could answer. That whole exchange was completely out of line for a board to even go into that kind of discussion because it's not an action item on their agenda. So again, this goes back to Robert's Rules of Orders. Number one, my biggest concern or my biggest gripe about this whole meeting requiring masks is that they did not give a 7-day notice, which has to be notified 7 days in advance. The agenda has to be published and it has to be circulated locally 7 days in advance. So when we got that notification on Friday, that was only one business day basically before we got to that board meeting. So number one, I was already pissed off about that, and then when this exchange happened between Cheryl and Emily, I was freaking out because it was completely wrong. And then Cheryl did apologize shortly after that. But again, if you take a look at her apology on that video, and it's right there on YouTube, you can see her apology. It was a crap apology. It was basically like, yeah, I'm sorry, Emily, but I just wanted you to answer the question. I already had the answer to your question in my head. I already knew it. So it was, again, just, it was out of line 100%. I've asked Cheryl to actually write Emily a written apology and then also open up the next board meeting with a public apology to her, because, hey, this video now has seen, I think, 5,000 views in a week, which, that's, we've got 10,000 people in Holmen. Obviously, it's not 5,000 Holmen people that have seen it, but I mean, really, that's a lot of views for this video.
Yeah, I think she should actually publicly apologize, if it's not just at that board meeting or not. And I didn't mind her questions, or her question. And I know that's not part of the format of how it's supposed to be. I don't mind her asking that question. But yes, it was a loaded question, and she did already have it in her mind of where she was going to stop her. By all means, ask her, do you think kids want to come to school with masks on, or do you think they want to go to school virtually? Now, when Emily said, of course they want to come to school, she should have allowed her to actually finish her thought. And I don't think she would have caused much gripe then. At least let Emily just get it off of her chest. It's like, I understand what your question is, but I'm going to revamp it a little bit with my answer, because of course kids want to go to school with their friends and actually experience school again, because I can't imagine what it would have been like if I was in school, if that's how it was going to be. I know my little community, my little high school I went to, Barron High School, I graduated with like 120 some kids. I guarantee every single one of us, if they would have said, yep, you have to come with masks on, we would come without masks, and we would try to make them kick every single one of us out. And that's what Emily was pretty much trying to say, is there is another option. You can let us come here, even if it's just a discussion of, let us try it for a semester. And let us come here for a semester, no masks, and see how many kids get COVID or see how many people get sick. I think she was down the right path, and I still stand by my statement when I was like, I think she cut her off because I honestly thought Emily was going to school her in a little bit of knowledge, and especially being a student rep, she's speaking for all of the students.
Right.
So I think it was bullshit how she cut her off, and I was irate when I saw the video. I'm like, no, you can't be asking a question and then cut someone off when they're just trying to answer you.
Yeah, totally agree. So I hope that there's some sort of an apology more than what she did at the board level. I had the short clip out there, and then I have the full clip out there as well of Emily's entire statement, and I think that she did a heck of a job, and she's got a ton of support. I mean, the hundreds and hundreds of comments. I mean, I took that video, I posted it on my YouTube page on Tuesday morning, and then I traveled to Omaha, Nebraska that day. So I had really no time to see what was going on, but I posted it in about 8 Facebook groups that I'm part of. And I mean, by the end of the day, we had damn near, I think, 2,600 views just in that day. So, and then I saw that you had picked it up, and that was really cool. And that's when I reached out to you, like, hey, let's dive into this a little bit more and see, what the crazy old man has to say.
No, I was super happy when you reached out, because I was like, God, I wish I knew who that girl's father was, and it'd just be so cool to see exactly what happened. And then when you reached out, I was like, oh, this is the guy that posted the video. When you were like, I'm her father, I was like, dude, I hit a fucking jackpot right here. Like, this is awesome. They just fucking reaching out. We're sitting at about 43 minutes right now. We won't make it too long, just because I don't want it to drag on too long, where people are like, just hour-long video. So I want to thank you so much for putting that video up. I think Emily did the right thing. I agree with everything that you said, that we got to get more people involved, people that aren't scared to actually stand up for themselves, and we got to get the correct people that are going to be either on that school board or someone to say something, because I think I feel for these kids. They can't ride a bus to go to sporting events, or I don't even know if that's true or not, but you can't do a lot of things that I think a normal kid should be doing in school. That's just how, and that's just how life is. Life is something where you need to go out there, you need to adventure, you need to have fun. And if they're going to sit here and take these years away from kids, especially seniors, like if you're a senior and this is how you got to live it, like, I feel so sorry for them. I think it's bullshit. But thank you so much for talking to me, Tom. I hope we can do this again. Hopefully something changes and we can kind of talk about it. I hope this reaches to a lot of people. And yeah, thank you so much for putting that video up. And if you have anything else to say at the end, say it.
All right, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you, Johnny. I appreciate you bringing me in here. Just remember that, you have a voice. You have a voice, and people need to hear it. Just do it out of love and respect and kindness, and you'll go a long way if you can do that. And the worst thing to do is just sit on your hands and do nothing. At least get involved in your local school boards, get involved in your local political action teams and things like that. And if you can support, people that have the views that you have to represent you, I mean, support them. Do some door knocking. Give them some money to help make yard signs or things like that. But we do need everybody to participate, and we need you to show up to these school board meetings. If you have a view one way or another, we want to hear it. And I think it's very important that we keep reminding people that we have freedoms and we have rights as Americans. And for the government and anybody else to tell you otherwise, that you should be mandated for X, Y, and Z, you need to remind them that they're wrong.
Right. Words of a very wise man. So once again, thank you so much, Tony. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will catch you guys later.
Thanks again, Johnny.